welcome Pamela. Oh,
Yeah, you want to do that?
is offering a giveaway. So if you want to write your name on a piece of paper, there's pens in here, fold it up, stick it in the back in the bucket when you're done, and then at the end we'll have a drawing for...
It's a proof coin set of pennies. I believe it's $19.99, and it comes in the nice case. So I'm just going to pick one out of that bucket, and at the end, and someone will win this.
We'll start it, we'll just pass it around, okay? Thanks.
Oh, you said they're pens. Excuse me.
Yeah, they're pens.
Okay.
If you want to use the microphone, you just slide that up.
Okay. Were you using it?
No.
No. Okay. I turned this on. It goes to the left, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'm good.
Blue, you're in good shape.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank you for asking me to come here tonight and talk to you. I guess I'm put down also as a treasure hunter. And I know that every treasure hunter has a story and a start. And mine began when I was like 9 years old. And I remember really clearly because that birthday, I got a little pin in a card that said, happy 9th birthday. And I had that, I put that on my shirt, I wore it around. I thought that was just the neatest thing. You know, when you're a kid, those things are just kind of important and special. Well, that evening, I remember this again, and that's why I guess I tied it together with that pin and that being 9 years old, that my father came home, and my father, just give this little background on him, he loved history, any kind of history. His father and he had done a lot of going on trains. They were railroad enthusiasts, and they loved traveling. My father took me on some of those as well when I was little. And anyway, he came home. He had been at his office. He was an insurance agent. He owned his own business. And he and the handyman, they have a handyman that would come in and he would do some of the property work, cutting the grass and pruning and whatever needed to be done. They had dug a hole and they ended up finding a old bottle. And I actually, believe it or not, many years later still have that bottle. It's nothing rare. It's a Dill's Balm of Life from Norristown, Pennsylvania. Now we lived in back then it was a rural suburban area outside of Ambler, Pennsylvania. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that area or not. Southeastern Pennsylvania, about, I'd say 35, 40 miles south of Philadelphia. Anyway, I remembered that bottle and I thought to myself, I can't believe that somebody would dig a bottle up. Why would a bottle be buried underground? You know, again, I'm a 9-year-old trying to figure this all out, and I just thought it was amazing. So I kind of filed that away in my memory for, I'd say, a year, maybe 2. And I switched schools, and at the beginning of the school year, they always tell you to come and get up in front, which everybody was kind of shy about doing that. I think at that point I was 11 years old, and tell what you did for the summer. And I didn't really have anything that interesting that I remember, but I met a young girl, you know, same age as myself, and she got up and talked about how she had gone to Minnesota with her family, and they found a bottle dump, and she had all these bottles that she brought home. She didn't bring them in to show us at the time, but that kind of clicked back to the bottle that my dad had found, and I'm like, really? This is kind of interesting. So we got to be good friends, and it kind of materialized where we rode our bikes looking for old dumps. We didn't even know where to look for a dump or look for a bottle or where to travel to. So we went to old woods, and sure enough, we found a few things here and there. They weren't that old at the time. They weren't anything like super, you know, valuable. But I remember we stopped, and at the time, I guess I'm going to say it's the late 60s, mid to late 60s, at a little gas station that had one of those old red Coke machines. And they still sold the Coke for 10 cents. And they came in what they call hobble skirt bottles. And you flip the cap off. They had the bottle opener right there on the machine. And it was a hot summer day. Again, these things stick in your mind. And I thought that was so neat. And we rode and drank our bottles of soda. We didn't take them back to the gas station. In fact, we didn't even recycle that kind of thing. Where I lived, we weren't all that near town. But anyway, we threw it in the woods. We took those bottles and we just chucked them in the woods. And later I thought to myself, as I grew up, again, I'm kind of, stepping forward here in time, and I thought, that's what people did with the bottles. That's why we're finding them. Yes, they're dumps. Behind homes, there's old outhouses where they had put things. There are dumps behind homes. There's, things like that. But there's also bottles that you find in the woods that people have, just like my friend and I did, just chucked them as we're riding our bikes. Because back then, everything was pretty much wooded, and, it wasn't as built up as it is today. Down there now, I would never even think of riding a bicycle. So anyway, I had a father that was basically I'd call it amateur historian. And he loved to take me when he'd go on his business trips, as he called them. It would be like an overnight. And being an insurance agent, he was one of those old-time insurance agents that went to people's homes, got to know them, got to know what they did, really became a part of their lives other than just somebody that they paid a premium to. And he introduced me to different people he met, through his insurance, and there are all kinds of connections. I remember another incident that we had that I thought was amazing, and it was in Bucks County. We ended up looking for dinosaur bones. He had an archaeological group that he was, interested in being involved in, and he had a friend of his who was an archaeologist at Temple University. And through that, he got me to go look for dinosaur bones. We didn't find anything. We were looking for prints too. We were looking for fossils and anything we could find that might have been related. But that day we didn't find anything. So I did get a dig as a little bit older when I started to drive through this archaeologist. He had me, it was an old veterinarian's office, and he had me kind of work there and learn a little bit what to do. I never found much, only some shards of old pottery. Nothing to speak of. But it was interesting, and it gave me a start. But I'd say if I had one mark of becoming, I don't know what you would call a treasure hunter, it was my father and his love of history. As I said, he would take me on trips, and we always ended up going somewhere interesting. We went to battlefields, walked the battlefields. I was probably, like I said, 10, 12, 13, 14 years old. By the time I was a teenager, he and I didn't get along too well anymore. But prior to that, we went everywhere. I remember going up to Fort Ticonderoga in New York and walking that battlefield. I remember going down to the glass works in New Jersey and seeing them blow glass. And, to me as a kid, the best thing was to go into a gift shop and get something. But I'd say if there was anything with my becoming, the adventurous that I'd say I still am now, it was my dad. And he loved coins. He collected coins. I, back then, couldn't care about coins whatsoever. But anyway, I started with the bottles and bottle digging, and I would go as often as I could. I remember a couple times we got chased off places. Again, this is going back to the late 60s, early 70s, and people let you on the properties more than they do today. They're not as, back then they weren't as afraid that maybe you were going to get, they were going to get sued, or maybe that there was going to be some kind of a, I don't know, an accident. We were trespassing. If you want to be honest, we were trespassing. We were kids and we were wrong. And I'll tell you a little story. I'm going to fast forward here about that. I'm thinking it was about 6 years ago. I was with two women, older women like myself. They weren't, youngsters. And we were walking a property not too far from where I live. I didn't know the person. although I thought that I knew the person that owned the property. As it turned out, it was the grandson. We were just walking along this one path. The property was posted. The house was posted, the barn was posted. Make a long story short, I had my Blazer parked out front. Neighbor came, took down my license number. I got home, and it was a state policeman that owned the property. I tried everything because it was his grandfather, but his grandfather was in his 90s and couldn't hear, to explain, and that didn't work. We each fined $150 for walking on that property. This man was relentless to show us we were in the wrong, and we were. Now, I believe, too, he had had some incidences in his house there. This house was deserted, and had sat deserted, I'm going to say 10 years or more, where people had come in and taken the copper pipe out. So I think that was probably his reason for being strict. Of course, you get your name in the newspaper. I mean, it was embarrassing. So I've learned my lesson well. I don't go on property that's posted, for one, and we ask permission. Now, asking permission to get on to either bottle dig or metal detect can be really, really rough. I was sharing with Dale about how difficult it can be. I know my digging buddy Dave and I will go to doors sometimes when we get the guts up. We'll drive by a house. If we see somebody outside, it's a little easier. But to actually go up to the door and knock on the door and like, hi, I'm Pam and I metal detect, and like some of them don't know what you're talking about. Some of them seem to know, and what they'll say is, well, if it's a woman, got to talk to my husband. Got to ask, see what he says. You know right then and there that the answer is no. So you leave and you have your kind of like your tail between your legs. You feel embarrassed and a little less inclined to want to do it again. But we have gotten some good permissions, and we offer the landowners, what we find. Most of them don't want anything. They're interested in seeing what we do find. And so it is difficult, but if you really want to get into a property and not worry about, any kind of law coming after you, the best thing to do is to ask permission before you go and trek on somebody's land. And I know my husband had a good point in that thing. He said, would you want people coming onto your property? I'm a little different. I've allowed hunters on. Metal detecting, I've already metal detected my property, and I still do. But if somebody wanted to join me, that would be fine too. But I'd like to see what they found, and like I said, I found a few things, but I can see his point. So the people that we do get permission from, I try to be really gracious to them, and maybe the next time we go back, take them something. I've taken baked goods, I've taken little candles and little things I've made, and just to let them know that you really appreciate, because letting you on to their property, because they don't have to do that. They really don't have to do that. So anyway, with the bottle digging, I've done that, goodness gracious, 50-some years now. And it's difficult, we were talking about that too, to find somebody that wants to do it with you. I have albums here with different people over the course of time that I've taken to dumps. I've got dumps to dig, and some of them are rough. I mean, really rough. You're going to put in a day, and you're not just going to find something along the side of the hill there. You're going to dig down, and we've dug down. Dave, I don't know, how far did we dig in the Vanling area dump? I'm going to say,
8 feet per mile.
yeah. And then you have a tunnel, so you've got to dig the tunnel out, or you're going to end up having a catastrophe on your hands. So bottle digging's rough. There's equipment for it, that I've found works well. One of those 4-prong cultivators. And then you want maybe a hand digger also with the same sort of you know, with the prongs. Of course, a shovel, gloves. I've seen people on YouTube channels digging without gloves. No comment, right? But I find that if you don't, I don't know. I ended up with a needle in me one time, an old needle. It festered. I didn't die. I'm here, but it wasn't something I would choose to do, and I wouldn't take a risk. But yeah, digging bottles is rough. I have some here that you can't see them from here, but when you come up, another thing I was fascinated with was the old patent medicines. I don't collect these in particular, but I do collect cold remedies, and I've got them all strewn in my bathrobe. But they, you know, they've got cough syrup. Here's a rough Tolu and tar cough syrup. They were about 90% alcohol and about 10% some kind of a drug. And here's a fairly common one, Hicks Capadine, for all headaches, colds, grip, etc. Now, who talks about having the grip today? I remember my dad, again, I remember him saying he had the grip, and a grip was, I guess, when you just didn't feel well, you had a cold, or you had a stomach virus, or could be a variety of different things. Here's Shiloh's consumption cure. Now, consumption was actually tuberculosis. So they didn't have a cure-all in a bottle. But these are similar to the bottles that you'd see the traveling medicine men, you know, with the wagon and the whole 9 yards, that would come there trying to get people to buy their wares, promising them healing from everything from a sore toe to cancer. And they got addicted and, you know, so continued buying the product. They did away with the cures. Some of these will say cure with the Food and Drug Act around, I'm going to say 1916. So you couldn't have cure on your bottles, you had to have remedy. And so that's, but as far as digging bottles, anyone that would be interested anytime, I've got places to dig. I've got an open invitation to that. So like I said, I dug for years and years, and I always wanted a metal detector. I saw other people doing it. I remember Dave with me metal detecting when we were bottle digging, and I remember him finding an Indian head penny. I think it was like 1891 or something. I didn't remember the exact date, but it was old enough that I thought, wow. You know, I don't find coins usually digging. I have on occasion, but for the most part I don't, bottle digging. And I thought, oh, they cost a lot of money. Now, at the time, we had our 3 children. We were raising them. You didn't have the money. And I had an old, I think it was called a beachcomber. It was a metal detector that my father gave my mother. They had a shore house in Stone Harbor for her to go along and try to find junk on the beach. Sat in a box in the closet for 20 years. She didn't touch it. Finally, I convinced her to give it to me, and it was like she was giving away a fortune. And I brought it home, plugged it in, put the batteries. It was very primitive. And I couldn't even get the thing to do anything. Couldn't find anything. So the next metal detector I got some years later was a gift from our oldest son. I told him I wanted a metal detector. And he bought me an Ace 150, a Garrett Ace 150. I took that thing out in the backyard. My husband put the batteries in it. Again, I was saying to Dale, I don't read directions, at least not well. And I took that thing around, and here I am. Can't find anything. Eventually, I found a few nails. Dug these huge holes because nobody showed me really what to do. I dug these huge holes that were probably about like this. Of course, with my own land, my own backyard, my own front yard. And that's all I found was nails. So I got kind of discouraged. I thought, this is a real waste of time. I mean, these other people find things. Why can't I? So again, a few years went by, and I was able, a lot of things came to play, to purchase a a decent metal detector. I had tried other people's over the course of time, and I have a Garrett AT Pro, and that thing's fantastic. You can put it in the water. You can, you know, it's fairly simple to understand. It's got all the, you know, different settings for, you know, coins, and you can, it's a, just, you can do a variety of things with it, and I think this thing is great. It's not your, you know, top of the line. It's a mid-range price detector. There's the other, you know, like I said, the Aces. I think they've got a lot of the Garrett has, and that's the one I'm most familiar with. There's a lot of detectors out right now, and they're putting out new ones. And then there's Whites, and then there's some of your higher priced ones like your Dias and ones like that. But if you're going to just get into it, I would recommend a mid-range detector. Dave's got an older one here. He'll show you guys when I'm finished here how that works. I think it's from what, the 70s?
It's 1999.
99, okay. And he finds things, and he can almost tell you what he's got. You know, he'll say, even with a penny, he'll say, I think it's, not, we're not always right? But he'll say, oh, I think it's a Lincoln penny, or I think it's a wheat penny. You can just tell over time by the sound that you're getting, the tones you're getting when you're, you know, hearing, you know, that there's something there of value, what it is. So we've been detecting probably at least about once a week. We found some interesting things. I think, to me, the most exciting was a friend's house that we went to, one of my friends, and it was an old house. It's an old house, and it's not too far again from where I live. It's in Gibson, and we're metal detecting, and I think that's when I found a skeleton key, and I think we found, I don't remember if it was a 50-cent, was it a 50-cent piece, a Walking Liberty, or I don't remember exactly what it was, but he found a, now correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, was it 1804 or 1806?
1806.
1806 Spanish Real silver, right in the, basically in her front yard. And I thought, you know, you try to reason this out. Why would that be there? Now, I know they used that as currency prior to our currency. So somebody back in the day obviously was over, you know, either they lived there in the house. I'm not sure that the house was that old, but there may have been another building there prior to that house. She really didn't give me any details. She didn't know much. It's her father's property. So that was pretty exciting. Of course, we find our share of junk. Bottle caps, especially when you go to parks and ball fields, you're going to find, and you're going to get disappointed. Believe me, I've been so disappointed. You know, you're out in the sun or out in the cold. I've been there where my fingers are so numb, and you're, you know, detecting, you're swinging back and forth, and you think, wow, this is good. You know, it sounds good because some of the sounds, some of the tones you get mask something, you know, something good and something not good. And here you pull up an old bottle cap or those pull tabs off the soda cans, and you're like, I've dug, for me, Dave will laugh at me for this, I'm always the one that seems to have to dig deep to find something. My holes are, I don't know, they're just deep. Of course, I don't make them like swimming pools anymore. I've gotten better at that over the years. But yeah, we brought the detectors, we brought some of the equipment to just show you what you might need, even to just start out. Because some people use garden trowels to dig. It doesn't work. They're not sharp enough or sturdy enough. They're not really worth taking with you. Again, there's other things, bug spray for the summer. Always wear gloves. I see detectorists not wearing gloves. I'm like, I know I'm a female and I paint my nails and I like them to stay decent, but I'm not apt to getting dirty. I mean, I've been in the dump bottle digging in particular, where we've been caught in a thunderstorm. And I'm sitting there, I'm not leaving. I'm sitting there in a pocket, and a pocket is where there's some bottles, or might be, you've dug a hole into the dump itself. And I'm like, I'm not going to go. So you sit there and you're completely drenched. I mean, like a rat, drowned rat. But you're determined to find something. I'd say if you want to bottle dig or metal detect and you're determined, eventually you're going to find things. You're not going to get rich probably, or, I'm not. But you might catch the bug, so to speak, which means that you're going to be, this is something you really are adamantly interested in doing. It's something that's important to you. I have some other stories that were kind of interesting too with bottle digging and metal detecting. I don't think we have any real super interesting metal detecting stories, do we, Dave? Oh, okay, there's the one. I don't know if anyone is familiar with the Alfred train station, the old depot. Do you know where the town of Alfred is? Anyone? No. Okay, if you take Route 11, you know where New Milford is. Anyone know where New Milford is? Okay. Or even, was it Hop Bottom? And okay. Right. You're going to take 11, and if you're coming from like New Milford, it's on your right-hand side. It kind of dips down, and there's an old train station, a deserted train station there. They've got the station that has the switches, where it switches the cars. Big building there. Of course, it's all graffiti. It's sad. And then the original building that had a tile roof. I think I've got a video of that too, the Alfred train station. And Dave and I, it was about 2 years ago, I wanted to detect there, but I thought there's a church there that's still in operation. There's an old store that's probably been out for 50 years or more. Nobody's there, kind of run down. There's an old post office, all right in the town. And then you go up the hill through there's like a little tunnel, railroad tunnel. And apparently this town used to be pretty prosperous. People would come, they had a bar, they had hotel, and it was known as a brothel too. People would get off the train at that particular station, and the whole, I don't remember if it was the Erie Railroad, but I know there were a couple railroads that ran through there. People would get off and, of course, go get a drink and do things they should not, but I found that interesting. Well, that 2 years ago, I was starting to say, Dave and I decided, probably me deciding, let's see if we can get permission. There was a couple houses. There was this kind of rundown house. He says to me, he goes, will you go up? I said, yeah, okay. I got daring that day and bang on the door and ask if we could detect the guy's yard. This guy comes to the door. I'm standing there again. Were you there with me too, or were you behind me? I don't remember, but Dave was with me, physically with me, and he answered, and this guy was scary, really scary. I mean, I don't know, he had a beard. I mean, that doesn't scare me, beards are fine, but he had a scary beard, a dirty beard. He was very dirty. It was a shame, but he was the nicest guy. And he started talking to us about this, that. Oh, yeah, there's probably car parts in the yard. Sure, go ahead. His name was Dave also, and he gave us permission. And we didn't find anything extraordinary that day, but we did the back. One thing that I really liked that Dave found was, I don't think if he brought it or not, was a little old fire engine, probably from the 30s or 40s, little car, cast iron car. But again, that was kind of I learned a lesson not to look at people that way, like just because they look strange and scary, just because he might sound a little scary, doesn't mean he is. Like I said, he was the nicest fella, and he gave us permission. And as I said earlier, that means a lot if someone is letting you onto their property to come onto their territory, basically, and you know, possibly find something. So we've had some fun. And again, as I said, with the bottle digging, I'm inviting anyone that's interested in metal detecting. I think Dale had mentioned that also. If you'd like to do it, even if you're, I was going to say disabled, I'm going to tell you a little story about somebody who's a digger friend of both of ours, named Larry. I dug with Larry, I'm going to say 15 more years ago. Older fella, he's in his, I think he's about 73, 74. And bottle digger, he loved bottle digging. This guy lived to dig. I remember the last time I dug with him before this all occurred, he said, I have to go to the hospital. I'm going to have a procedure done on my heart. And I thought, well, you know, they do a lot of that nowadays. It's probably, I don't know what he was getting done, but it didn't sound too serious. Well, poor Larry went into the hospital, had his heart procedure done. He proceeded to have problems with circulation. His legs turned black with gangrene, and he had both of his legs removed. He was supposed to die. So a lot of us prayed for him and that he would be okay. And his sister called me and she said, what's keeping Larry going is he wants to bottle dig again. He wants to go bottle digging. He loves bottles and he loves bottle digging. And today he bottle digs with his 2 prosthetic legs. He's got his metal, he's got his good legs that he wears, you know, when he's out, but he's got the metal rod ones, you know, the ones that you just get around and do stuff with. And he gets down on the ground, he has a little stool. He gets down on the ground and he sits there on his rear end and digs. He gets upset a lot and frustrated, which is, you know, to be expected. I'll hear him, and he doesn't hear well either. And I'll hear him over there cussing a bit, you know, well, especially when we don't find any, he's not finding anything. He'll say this blank, blank, dump this, you know. And I've taken him to some of the other dumps that are harder to dig, and he'll still sit down and try. But so my reason for bringing that up is if any of you feel maybe, you know, you can't do something as far as digging, and even if it's something else that you enjoy that has nothing to do with metal detecting or bottle digging, you can do it. If you're passionate enough about it and you're determined, you might have to alter the way you do it. You may have to take a chair. Myself, I've gotten, you know, some problems with medically, and for me it's easier if I don't have to walk too far, because sometimes my feet don't work as they ought to. But I get down on the ground, Dave will laugh at me again, Indian style and dig. Now, getting up is another story. I get up, I don't want help. I just want everybody to leave me alone and not look for a few minutes. And I'll grunt and groan and I get to my feet and I'm like, oh my goodness, why do I do this? You know why? Because I love it. I love it. And finally, there's another story that I'd like to share along the same lines. 10 years ago, I ended up with cancer. And I went in to have an operation done. And I didn't know what was the outcome going to be, you know, what was going to happen, if it was they caught it all or they didn't. And I had a wonderful cancer doctor, the Women's Cancer Center in Allentown. He was wonderful, real personal and cared about you. You knew it, you could just feel it. And he sat on my bed the day before I was going to leave. And 10 days later, I had to go to have you know, stitches taken out, or, you know, to be checked and all that sort of thing. And he said to me, Pam, what do you know, he felt optimistic, but again, we didn't know for sure. He said, what do you like to do? He was another one that was very personal. I remember my husband was sitting there, and he didn't care too much about talking to my husband. He was more interested in me and my welfare and what I enjoyed. And I told him about the bottle digging. I said, I love to bottle dig. I go bottle digging every week. And that was in January when I had the surgery, so I had several months to be, to recuperate and to be able to get back out there in the woods and dumps and, and do my digging. And I shared with him, and he said, well, what do you find? And I told him some of the different kinds of bottles, and basically, because he was a medical doctor, about some of the quack medicines and what they were used for, and some of the ages of the bottles we found. And he was fascinated. And he said to me, Pam, I want to say something to you. He said, that's living. And that stuck in my mind today, that's living. Living is doing what you love to do, whatever it may be. You don't, like I said, you don't have to be a bottle digger. My husband isn't. My three children, I have a daughter and two sons. They don't particularly care about it. I know my daughter hates it. And I've got grandchildren that'll go with me metal detecting and digging. But find something you're passionate about. And again, I give an open invitation if someone wants to talk about going digging with Dave and myself or detecting. We're more than willing, to have you come along with us. I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. What kind of gloves? Metal detecting you could pretty much wear, like not big baggy ones that you're trying to, when you get your coin or your relic that you find, you're trying to like hold it. I usually wear like a tight fitting, almost like a bicycle glove. I'll wear those. Of course, in the winter, you're going to want a heavier glove. I've picked them up, believe it or not, at the dollar stores type of thing. And it has like a rubber, right, on the palm of it. They work well. And you're paying $1, so wash it a few times. You might get some holes in the fingers, throw them out, buy a couple pairs. But they work really, really well. I see some friends of mine digging, and they've got these huge gloves. And when they find whatever they're finding, they're trying to pick it up, and, it just doesn't work. Another thing that we have been confused about over the course of time is, what curb lines are, right? That's the grass between the road and a person's property. We were never sure if that was public ground, owned by the township or borough or whatever, or by the homeowner. Was it last year? I started metal detecting the curb line before we knew for sure, and we still don't really know for sure. This lady came out, and I got such a tongue lashing with every 4-letter word she could come up with. Thanks again. Thank you. Do you want me to do it, or Dave? I mean, I can do it, sure. I have no idea whose is where, so.
Right. Take out the pen so they're not in the way.
Okay. Sam Motts. Very good, Sam.
Good job.
There you are, okay.